Hey, Pat Brown, did you know that this channel is growing with more and more subscribers every week? Can you believe that? For some reason, a worldwide audience is apparently hungry to listen to two old dudes talk about their experiences flying and how other people might do it better.
Well, I heard a rumor, Jamie.
I'm actually really thrilled. I got to tell you, we started this a matter of months ago.
Yeah.
I always have fun doing these with you. I assume you have fun because I send you $10 every couple months, and I would think that's enough. Um, this has been really surprising how well it's grown. I can't thank the audience enough. When
Yeah.
we say click the like button and leave comments below and subscribe to the channel, people are actually doing it. I'm appreciative. Pat, do you have anything that you're doing to make that happen? Are you greasing people down at the local mall or what?
Bribery works wonders, Jamie. That's all I can tell.
Well, hey, as long as this is ostensibly an aviation channel, and I think it is, let's talk about one of the real problems that everybody, and I mean everybody in aviation, is going to encounter at some point: learning plateaus.
You bet.
Basically, this is the concept of you're learning something technical and specific. There's a lot to it, and it just keeps adding on and adding on. And you're making great progress, and you're feeling good, and things are going so well. And then frustration sets in. You just can't get the next tasks. And no matter how much you work on it, you're not getting any better at it. Have you ever heard of this, or is it just
Yeah.
me?
Oh, no. It's not just you. And it happens to everybody. And it doesn't matter what level you are, how often you've been flying, no matter what certificate or rating you're looking for, it happens to one extent or another with everybody. So common.
And what's interesting about it is because this is something that the student is experiencing, it's something that both the student and the instructor are going to have to deal with. Same issues, but maybe in a slightly different way. For instance, on the student side, I'm going to feel frustration. That's going to happen because for me, it was turns around a point. Could not get it. I was doing fine. I had my check ride scheduled. Everything's going great. I cannot get turns around a point, and it was just really frustrating me. Keep your eye on the ball. Understand why you're doing this and what the point is, so that one thing, that one issue isn't becoming the end of the world for you, so you're so focused on it. Simon Sinek does a great TED talk on why, and how people who know why they're doing something become very successful, and people who don't know why they're doing it just kind of fall by the wayside. So look at the big picture, and that may help. How about from an instructor's perspective? How do they deal with that frustration?
Well, helping your students stay focused, and again, the big picture. We're talking about really two sides of the same coin here. You're just looking at it from the student's perspective, but the instructor has the same situation. It's just trying to keep the student focused, and the why thing is such an important deal. Well, why do we have to do turns about a point? Why do we have to do ground reference maneuvers? Why do we have to do S turns across the road? They'd suck. I agree. Test turns across the road after you've done about 30 of them is like, my God, I'm going to go postal if I have to do another one. But you're learning.
No, I'm completely on board. People
But,
sometimes forget that the instructor is doing whatever you're doing 4 or 5 times a day. So if you're out
oh,
there doing
easily.
stalls and you're doing, 10 of them per lesson, the instructor may be doing 40 or 50 a day.
Exactly. But it's incumbent upon the instructor to explain to the student why we're doing this. And in the case of your situation, S turns or turns about a point or rectangular patterns or whatever, the broader subject of ground reference maneuvers, we're learning what the wind is doing to us and how to correct for the wind. And if we don't master that to a certain level, we're never going to be able to master flying the traffic pattern and flying a consistent traffic pattern, because we'll never be able to understand what the wind is doing to us in the traffic pattern, which is of paramount importance. So keeping the student focused and with that end goal and explaining the why is a huge deal. Again, it's the other side of the coin.
And it's counterintuitive, but just take a break. If you found some task that you're working on and it's just not working, and I mean, you're putting real effort in, you're studying at home, you've watched videos, you're talking to CFIs, you're practicing in the airplane, and it's just not working, doing it over and over to the point of frustration and aggravation and maybe even anger is not productive. Take a break. There's plenty of tasks in that ACS we have to knock out before we do our check ride. So as the student, it's perfectly okay to say, I'm done with this for the day. Let's just make our next flight something else. Let's not even work on this and we'll come back to it. And that's fine because your instructor might have been feeling similar frustration. Just get it out of your head, go do something else.
Yeah, it is perfectly okay for the student. Remember, students out there that are listening to this, you're paying a significant amount of money for this. And if you're at a point where it's become frustrating, and as you said, Jamie, you're developing an anger thing, or such a in your head that you just can't do it, it's okay to say to your instructor, "Can we do something different?" But it's also okay from the instructor standpoint, and hopefully the instructor will recognize that the applicant, or the student, I should say, is at that point or approaching that point, and is intuitive enough to say, "Hey, why don't we take a break from whatever this is and let's go do something else? There are a lot of other things." And I'll give you a good example of this. I got a call from one of our AOPA scholarship winners, recipients, just yesterday as I was coming home from doing a check ride, and he was really frustrated because the weather hasn't been cooperating with him, and when it does, the wind is howling, and his instructor has him going up and doing touch and goes in 18 knot winds.
Oh,
And
that's
so,
rough.
oh yeah, and it, all right, I can see once, all right, but at some point that really becomes counterproductive, and the student is burning through money, and all they're doing is knocking out bounce and goes in 18 knot winds, and he's not learning a thing. So I suggested to him that he should have the conversation with the instructor. Hey, after I solo, because he hadn't even soloed yet. He's 24 hours into it and hadn't soloed.
Wow.
I suggested to him, look, after solo, you're going to start on cross country stuff. So instead of canceling a lesson when you've got strong winds, why don't you suggest let's sit down and do some ground school on planning across country? And then maybe the next time we have some strong winds, maybe we can fly across country, but maybe we can go to an airport where the runway aligns with the wind a little bit, or maybe it's not quite so windy. Now, the instructor, I would hope, again, talking about the other side of that coin, I would hope that the instructor would be the one that makes that suggestion. Hey, you know something, Joe? This is counterproductive to do what we're doing. It's wasting your money, and we're not making any progress. Not your fault. We've got incredibly challenging winds. You're a 24-hour pilot. We haven't even soloed yet. It's not fair to expect you to be able to handle this. And before you get frustrated with the process, let's move on to something else that's going to be productive and appropriate to where you are in your training. So again, the other side of the coin.
No, I think that's absolutely valid. That's really good advice. And we did an episode recently on 5 signs that you might need to change your CFI. There might be
Right.
time to do a new one. That's not this, but if you're really having a problem, if you've got a learning plateau and you're not making progress on a given task, there's nothing wrong with flying with another flight instructor. Different instructors will explain things different way. They may demonstrate it slightly different. They may click with you a little better. And this is such a normal thing in a Part 141 program. This is called a stage check. It's built into the training. In Part 61, that's less common, but you can do it. And there's nothing that stops a student from saying, I've been flying with Jamie and I'm not getting anywhere on this. I'd like to fly with Pat once. Could we do that? And the answer is probably going to be sure. Let's schedule it.
Yeah, that's entirely different than let's say firing your flight instructor or moving to a different school or something like that. It's just asking for uh, another point of view. And if again, the other side of the coin, is from a flight instructor standpoint, if you find your student struggling and struggling and struggling, and despite your best efforts to explain how we can get over this plateau, it's not working. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know something, I want you to fly with Jamie a couple of times. I love flying with you. I'm planning to continue flying with you unless you love Jamie more than you love me. But I
What are
want
the
you
odds of that?
to, but I want somebody else, the fresh set of eyes, to look at this in case there's something that I'm missing. Now, that takes some maturity. And it takes being able to set your ego aside, because all of us want to think that we're the best flight instructors that ever grabbed a control yoke. All of us want to think that. But the fact of the matter is, there's always somebody better. I don't care how good you are, there's always somebody better.
Much like
So,
guitar players.
boy, no joke. And I can see all those. Do you play better because you've got what, 7 guitars behind you there?
Oh yeah, that volume is what makes the difference.
Because I've only got 2. I must be about 1/3 as good as you are.
Or twice as good as I are.
Well, you don't see the other 8 or 9 in the closet, though. So,
But no,
anyway,
to your point though, you're right. Everybody is different. Everybody has some skill that the other person doesn't have. And it
yeah,
really works out. Flying with another instructor, not to replace yours, but just to have a different experience is worthwhile. As a matter of fact, one of the issues that we have with learning plateaus might be focus. And to get over that, it's possible that the student could say, let me be the CFI on this lesson. Let me teach you, Pat, how to go through this, because now I have to be very focused on power, pitch, bank, heading. What is it I'm trying to do? The whole thing. It can be a confidence builder, but it can also point out, where are you getting lost in this specifically? So we're not looking at the whole task. We're now looking at the thing that's causing the problem.
yeah, yeah. One of the challenges that flight instructors have is, especially the new ones, not so much experienced instructors, but really the newbies, the babies, um, is knowing when to shut up. That's true. You
Oh
know,
no,
you
I
can.
suffer from that really bad.
So let's just talk about S turns across the road. Since you had mentioned ground reference maneuvers, find a good long road, and you start, um, and you start. Okay, we're going to start on the downwind leg. Although the ACS doesn't say you have to start on the downwind leg, but typically we do. And the first thing the CFI is going to start to do is to, okay, this is the steep angle. Now let's start shallowing it out. Okay, this is the shallowest. Okay, now we got to start steeping it up. And over and over and over again, that same verbiage, right? And at some point, the CFI just needs to shut up. And so, again, the other side of the coin is, when I was doing a lot of primary training, and I still do some, um, we'll go back and forth on the S turns forever and ever and ever, maybe back and forth until, all right. And then I'm going to say to the student, okay, I'm going to be quiet and you talk me through it. You teach me how to do it. So you're saying that the student should say, let me teach you. And I'm saying that the instructor should say, okay, you teach me.
There's actually a method for that, the demonstration performance method. That's the whole point, and
Yeah.
it works out pretty well. By the
Yeah.
way, just as a point of comfort for anybody who's having this issue,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll say it again and again and again, we've all had this issue. You're not the first person to have this problem.
No.
Whatever your issue is, whatever task you're having problems with, trust me, there's thousands who came before you who had this exact same issue. Talk to other students, talk to other pilots. If nothing else, it'll take that weight off your shoulders that you're not the only one. You're not deficient. This is just part of the learning process.
Yeah. And instructors, once again, talk to other instructors. Talk to your chief pilot, talk to the owner of the flight school. If you're an independent instructor, seek out some other instructors that are perhaps a little bit more seasoned than you are, that have a few more hours, a little bit more experience. There's nothing wrong with contacting a colleague, a friend, a stranger that you're referred to, and say, "Look, I'm a CFI. Maybe you're fairly new. Maybe you're quite seasoned, and you've just run into something that you've just never seen before." There's nothing wrong with saying, "You know something, I've got this student that I'm just struggling with on a whatever it is,
Hmm.
and can you offer some words of wisdom?" Um, I get phone calls like that. I wouldn't say frequently, but but it is not uncommon to get a telephone call from a especially a younger flight instructor calling me as a DPE and just basically saying, I'm having some trouble with this. Can you help me? And I'm always willing to sit down with them face to face or on a Zoom call or on a cell call or whatever. And I suspect that's true for not only examiners but just more senior flight instructors who want to see you succeed as a CFI. So asking another instructor, or even just another experienced pilot, is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think that's more common than not. Most of us are very happy to share what we know,
Yeah.
even stories about how we had trouble and how we got over it. So it's worthwhile. And speaking directly to the viewer now, I'm completely ignoring Pat. I'm just talking to you. You know how you learn better than anybody else. Maybe you like to read and get all the information in order in your head. Maybe you like to see it visually. Maybe you like somebody to talk you through it. Whatever your method is perfectly fine. But if you know what that method is, tell your instructor. You can use that to your advantage working with your instructor so that they can best help you. One of the challenges we have as CFIs, and now I'm talking to Pat again, so I'm ignoring you on the other side of this camera. One of the biggest challenges we have is every single student we have is a unique individual that has their own way of looking at the world. We have to figure that out. If the student can help us during this process and let us know, hey, I really like videos. Videos let me conceptualize the whole thing. Terrific. Let me find some videos for you to watch. Is that valid from your perspective, Pat?
Yeah, you actually touched on the heads and tails thing as well, in that one wonderful monologue, by the way. Uh,
Thank you very much.
well, I know you practiced it. Um, no, one of the things that I have always, well, I shouldn't say always, because it took me a while to learn this myself. But as I got more experience as a flight instructor, gained more experience, one of the first questions that I would ask a new student is, how do you learn best? Rather than wait for the student to volunteer it, because they may never volunteer it. They may just get frustrated and go somewhere else or quit because as flight instructors, we weren't intuitive enough to ask, how do you learn best? And, honestly, Jamie, that person may not know.
Mhm.
They may not really be able to articulate that, but at least asking the question will strike up it'll start the conversation. So how do you learn best? And if they say, well, I'm not sure. All right, well, do you like to kind of read and then do? Do you prefer to see something done? Do you have more of a photographic memory, or whatever the case may be? I mean, you can continue to ask questions and kind of hone in on an answer, but the instructor should ask that question early on, especially if it isn't readily apparent what is working and what's not for that particular student.
Yeah, and I think people can give themselves a little bit of a break as they deal with this. If they kind of remember everything you're doing in aviation, your entire flight training experience is completely different from anything you've ever done before. Being in the air changes everything. So it's okay that there's a lot of information coming at you, and some of it's going to slip through the cracks, and some of it you're just going to have a hard time assimilating for a period of time. And then you'll get it. And just like all the rest of us, it's like, I couldn't possibly do this last month. Now I have no problem with it. It's just it's a progression, and you're going to be fine because you got guys like Pat Brown to talk to.
Well, there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that you run into a brick wall, as long as you don't internalize it to the point where you can't climb over it.
Yep,
Um,
that's a good point.
yeah, you know, um, I saw a YouTube video a while back. It wasn't a TED talk, but it was kind of like a TED talk, and I've forgotten who the college professor was, but it was a gentleman that was. This is going to get dark for just a second, but there's light on the end. There it is. It was a gentleman that was dying. It was a college professor who was dying of cancer. He knew he was terminal, and he was. It's called. I think it's called The Last Lecture. I think
The
the
last
full
lecture,
name.
it's excellent.
It's
It's
excellent.
truly amazing.
And his point was that obstacles are not put in your way to keep you from achieving your goal. They're put in your way to figure out how badly you want to get there. And I only saw this video, a couple of years ago maybe, but boy, what an aha moment when you start to realize there have been times in your life, mine too, where something just seems insurmountable. And but if you're focused and you're determined that you're going to do it, there really and truly is nothing that each one of us can't accomplish. So just as Jamie started out with, you Jamie, keep your eye on the ball. Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. There's another saying, begin with the end in mind. So the end is I'm going to get my private pilot certificate. But in the meantime, the end right now is I'm going to get steep turns, or I'm going to get, because these are steps in the ladder. The ladder is you're starting not knowing anything and you're getting good at ground reference maneuvers. Then you get good at your air work, and then you solo, and then you do your cross country, and then you do your check ride prep, and then you take your check ride, and boom, at a certain number of hours, you're ready to go. But each one of those are stair steps on a ladder. And if we keep the big picture in mind and break it down into small tasks, first of all, I'm gonna make S turns where I can, explain it to my instructor instead of having him or her explain it to me, and then just on and on and on down the road. Yeah, I know it sounds simplistic, and in a sense, it really is that simple. Keep your eye on the ball, set your goals, achievable, realistic goals in a stair step fashion, and before you know it, you're there.
My favorite part about this is if you were on the clock, Pat, we would owe you a bunch of money because that's some great insight. Fortunately, it's just YouTube, so it's free. But thanks so much. I really appreciate you sharing this insight because when you get right down to it, it is pretty basic and you can do it. You just got to accept you're a human being and you're just having a little bit of an issue for the moment. Don't
Yeah.
stress over it. So while you're not stressing over it, click the like button below. Leave us a comment on this episode because you undoubtedly have an opinion on this and we would love to hear it. And of course, subscribe to the channel because you just want to be part of the in crowd. And that's how you do it. Would you agree, Pat?
Yeah, I couldn't say it better.
Let's get back together and do this again real soon. And we'll see you on your personal device on Mad Props Aero.
Adios.